Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good evening for everyone in Indonesia and good morning for Professor Saifur Rahman in US. And also I hope we all in best condition today. Okay, best wishes to us. And we thank God Almighty because in this amid of pandemic and crisis, we can gather with the very moment in this Thursday evening, 25 February 2021. And today we will have an online experience sharing about how to write an effective technical paper. And this event of this evening is the collaboration between FORTEI. FORTEI is Association of Higher Education in Electrical Engineering Indonesia, and also IEEE, especially IEEE PES, Power Engineering System in Indonesia chapter, Power and Energy Society, Indonesia chapter. And we also know that technical writing or technical paper serve as an essential tool in communicating or conveying one's ideas, views, observation, instruction, and suggestion in a more logical and technical manner. And technical writing used for a specific purpose, and hence it needs to be precise, relevant, and without redundancy. And it is important to understand how to write an effective technical paper. So in this session, we will have one presenter that has already joined with us, Professor Saifur Rahman from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, which is also well known as Virginia Tech. And we also have here the Honorable Professor Hadi Suyono as a FORTEI chairman that will give us welcoming speech to all speakers and participants. And also present today among us, the Honorable Professor Arif Afandi from Malang State University, but he joined between us here as the president of IEEE PES or Power and Energy Society, Indonesian chapter. Before we start our meeting, I would like to request all participants, except the speaker, to mute the microphone so it will not conflict with presenter sound. Okay, I think it is 19 past 35, and welcome to all participants. And now we can start the meeting. But before Professor Saifur Rahman give us a presentation, please let Mr. Hadi Suyono and then continue with Professor Arif Afandi give a welcoming speech. Professor Hadi from as chairman of FORTEI. And without ado, I would like to invite Professor Hadi Suyono to give welcoming speech to our participant. I hope it will not more than 3 or 5 minutes. Okay, please.
Or less than 2 minutes, ya.
Okay.
Oke, terima kasih. Mungkin gimana ya, seperti ada feedback ya.
Jelas Pak Hadi.
Jelas ya, oke. Good morning, Prof. Saifur Rahman. Selamat pagi. Selamat malam juga to Professor Hadi Afandi as the chair of the IEEE PES Indonesia chapter, and also our colleague, rekan-rekan anggota FORTEI, member of the IEEE PES Indonesia chapter, and all participants of this evening webinar. First of all, on behalf of the FORTEI, the Association of the Higher Education in Electrical Engineering Indonesia, I would like to thank Professor Saifur Rahman from Virginia Tech University, USA, for the offer to organize this evening event together with the IEEE PES Indonesia chapter. The technical writing tutorial on how to write an effective technical paper to be delivered by Professor Saifur Rahman, this evening will be a very indispensable topic to all of us who are working in the academic environment. It is one important skill for academicians. Actually, such this kind of the activity and skill also become the concerns of our FORTEI association. At FORTEI, such this kind concerns is normally handled by the division of the capacity development as part of the commission of the publication and capacity development under the Directorate of Academic and Publications, the director of which is Dr. Dian Ratno Sawitri. Thank you, Budian. So it is really a very good opportunity not to be missed to welcome the topic offered by Professor Saifur Rahman. I hope that all participants will be able to take the most of this evening program. And I also hope it will help us all to increase our professional productivity, especially in terms of the scientific research result, dissemination and publication. Before I hand over this opportunity back to Mr. Adharul, the MC man, for who does not know yet, I would like to inform you all that Professor Saifur Rahman will run for the IEEE presidency this year. So please let me wish him good luck for his candidacy for the IEEE president in the 2021 elections. Let us vote for him through our respective IEEE accounts. And finally, again, thank you so much, Professor Saifur, for the times provided and fruitful sharing with us. We also hope to welcome you again in other opportunity in the future. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. Saya kembalikan lagi ke Pak Adharul.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Hadi Suyono. Okay, that's it is a very interesting about information about
Pak Adharul masih mute.
Okay, thank you, Professor Hadi Suyono. Yeah, that's a very interesting speech, information about FORTEI and also about Professor Saifur Rahman. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Suyono. And now I would like to invite the Honorable Professor Arif Nur Afandi from State University of Malang to give us welcoming speech, and also he will give us a general introduction about IEEE PES Indonesia chapter. Okay, please, Professor Arif Nur Afandi to give a brief speech and also introduction to PES. I hope not more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
More time than Professor Hadi Suyono.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, the moderator. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The honorable our speakers today, the special guest for us, Professor Saifur Rahman. Good morning or good evening here, and Professor Hadi Suyono. Thank you for this program, which is collaborated with PES IEEE Indonesia. First of all, I want to share and let me know to the PES. I will start share. Yeah, this is introduction about the Power and Energy Society chapter in Indonesia, belong to the Indonesia section of the IEEE. And then thank you for FORTEI, especially engaging this program with PES for the Saifur Rahman speaker, especially how to write an effective technical paper. I hope this program will increase our ability to write more and more publication in scientific journal or conference. Regarding the PES, this is a short history of the PES. Started in 2015. We have collected many petitions from industrial, academician, and other professionals. After that, on April 21st, our proposal was approved from the US. So starting in the April in 21st, the PES Indonesia already established. After that, until now, we exist for the moment. So this I hope in the 2020 also exists like a previous period for the activity of the PES. In detail, now the PES has exclusive organization, me as the chair or president. After that, also Dr. Dian. She's joined now. I hope Mr. Anggoro also joined this meeting. So we have mixed some collaboration after this. We invite all the members, particularly all under our institution also. Please mix some collaboration with us. It's already PS and FORTEI. I hope between all members we can join for the IEEE PS or FORTEI, because I hope we come from the FORTEI, also come from the PS. This is official web for our organization. So the PES have some official web coming from all activity will be published in this official PES also program and activities. In this point, we have many contact for collaboration, such as for me. This is me, and then after that at the Universitas Negeri Malang, another in Semarang, also Mr. Anggoro and Ms. Tian already there. You can contact from the many collaboration is welcome for you. After that, this is main activities in the PES. Like now, we have 4 times professional activity, scientific activity, and then technical activity and administrative activity. This is cover conference sponsor, research partner, distinct lecture, like now, maybe general lecture or webinar, also workshop and training, like now, already done. So activity like meeting for the member and management for organization. This is support for the PES around the IEEE Indonesia segment member. We on the second place or runnable after computing society. So in Indonesia, we support 20% of the member for the IEEE Indonesia section. Technically, in the IEEE PS, we have like this. So we come from associate member, graduate member, lab member, channel member, and student member. This is totally member in IEEE PES. So now, like now, we have 92 people belong to the PES. If we think about the gender, so we come from dominate with male. So as this point, we have 80.40% from male. Other than that, the second is from female. If we think the expertise from the member, we think that the power, energy, and industry applications more member belong to the PES. So in this point, like FORTEI, so I think the same thing for FORTEI. So we have both sides for cooperation in PES and FORTEI. So I think better if we invite you, FORTEI members, become to the PES member, or I think IEEE member, even though the price is quite expensive like the first discussion. I think maybe next president, Mr. Saifur Rahman, Professor Saifur, with degrees for Indonesia people. I think this is a good member because Indonesia is many people want to join, but the main problem also in the fee, totally in fee, especially for personal fee is very expensive. This is a member, like I said before. I think we have distributed from the member. This is a member, general member. So we have secondary student. So it means we can make some activity based on the student branch because PES has ran a second night for the members. So this is some activities, some activities in 2020. We have many activities in 2020. And then at the first time in 2020, we also has many activities like before, like now also. Maybe even though it is still under COVID-19 pandemic, I think we still we have many activities for the 21 for the PES. As members, so please join and see and learn something related to the requirement and fee. You can join for the member like a student or professional or general, or you can also increase your member belong to the step like member to the senior member or previous member. So in this final slide, we invite professionally for the FORTEI members, as I said, to be a member for the PES. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think this is closing my introduction about IEEE, and then I said thank you again for the FORTEI who organized this meeting with IEEE. I hope for the next step we can make some other collaboration, not only webinar or training. Maybe we can also join related to the many expertise for us. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor Arif Afandi, for the very useful information about IEEE PES, and we hope next year the member of Indonesia will increase and we can continue to the next collaboration. And Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, we will start the main topics from Professor Saifur Rahman. The Honorable Professor Saifur Rahman is from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, which also well known as Virginia Tech. Professor Saifur will share to us about how to write an effective technical paper. But before we hear his presentation, I would like to read his curriculum vitae first that I get it from a site from Virginia Tech University. Professor Saifur Rahman office is on Advanced Research Institute, and he also graduated as PhD from Electrical Engineering Virginia Technology. And the teaching interest is smart grid, critical infrastructure, alternate energy, and also environmental studies. I don't read research or project experience because maybe it will need a long time to read all publication from Professor Saifur Rahman. Okay. And I also would like to give a reminder to all participants. If you have any question or discussion, please write down in the chat box first, or you can wait to use a directly voice using Zoom during discussion session after Professor Saifur Rahman give his presentation. And now I would like to invite Professor Saifur Rahman to start the presentation. And please to Professor Saifur Rahman.
Assalamualaikum. Selamat pagi.
Waalaikumsalam.
Selamat malam.
Selamat malam.
So thank you, Pa Afandi, Pa Adharul, for the nice introductions. I'm very pleased to hear that PS in Indonesia has made so much progress. When I was there even 5 years ago, PS was fairly small, and Pa Anggoro took me around, showed a lot of things. So let me share my screen so you can all see what I am going to talk about. So, Rini, can you see my screen?
Yes, Professor.
Yes, can see.
Very
Good, thank you, thank you. So this is the topic, how to write an effective technical paper. We all write papers. Sometimes they don't get accepted, sometimes they have other problems. So I'm going to give you some ideas that you should be watching carefully so that when you submit the paper, it has a higher chance of getting accepted. That's the objective. So let's move on then. This is me. I just so that it is complete. I come to IEEE from publication background. I've been chief editor on 2 journals, magazines. I was VP publications. So all that is my background. This is something I want to show. If you want to see the recording of this lecture, it is available from IEEE PES Resource Center. If you go to IEEE PES website, go to Resource Center, put my name. If you're a member, it'll come up free for you. So you can use that so that you have a recording of this talk that I am giving today. So this is my audience typically. When I give a talk at like university, I've done in UI, I've done in ITB in Bandung, people come to me and ask a lot of questions. I hope you'll have questions for me after I finish my presentation. So these are the 2 questions I have to ask you so I understand what is your plan. Typically, people write a paper for the sake of writing a paper. What do I mean by this? Like my students, PhD students, must have 1 paper accepted for publication before they can take their exam. It has to be accepted. That they have to write a paper based on their research. Or like people in industry want to show how they got some special results from their work. I'm getting some echo here. Can you hear me okay, Adharul? I'm clear?
It's
Okay,
okay.
it's
Very
okay.
clear. Yeah, it's very clear.
I'm getting echo here. Okay. The second point is you are an engineer at PLN or some company. You want to tell people what's going on. This is typically done for conference papers, typically, number 2. And number 1, typically for journal papers. So we'll see the difference between the 2 as we go forward. Now, who writes these papers? Well, in this audience today, we have engineers, we have educators, we have scientists. They come from companies, come from universities, come from government labs in Indonesia also. These are also coming from these papers. Students, they typically write a paper for a conference first, go to the conference, present the paper, get some comments back, and based on the comments they get back from the conference participants, they write more and make the paper stronger, better. Then it's submitted to a journal. I'll talk more about that going forward. So now let's look at from the other side. You are the author, fine, you've done it. But before you can feel comfortable about the paper, you must think, what is the reviewer, editor looking for in your paper? This is the reason why many papers get rejected, because you are not thinking about what happens once the paper is submitted. First of all, I am the, let's say, chief editor of a journal. I get your paper. First question I ask myself, is this paper relevant to my journal? Every journal has a scope. If you go to the journal website, read the scope, like power systems has a scope, smart grid has a scope, energy conversion has a scope. Make sure your paper is in scope. That's first question. Then I am thinking, reading your paper, is this paper written in clear English so that other people can understand the paper easily? Very important. Is it some new work or is it extension of previously published work? It's always possible. Second paper. Then the question is, you have some methodology, some models. I have to make sure the method you have used is scientific and it is reproducible. If you get some results, only you can see it, nobody else can see it, then nobody will trust you. Very important. The results must be reproducible. Other people can get the same result using your method that you have submitted. Next is, we are engineers, so we like illustrations, figures, tables, graphs in the paper. So I would suggest when you write a paper, please pay attention to tables, graphs, pictures, because we like to see what has been done, especially for experimental work. And finally, you must have enough references which are current and relevant to the subject you are discussing, so that your references are relevant to your work. Good. Now, how does the review process work? What happens? Can you mute your mic? Okay. The name of the chief editor is published on the journal website. You know this person's name and even email address. So he or she gets the paper when you submit it online. Then first thing that happens in IEEE and other journals as well, we do what is called content matching check to make sure your paper has enough new material. It is not copying material from other people's work. That's called iAuthenticate. That's a computer program. Also, we have a list of banned authors in IEEE. What does it mean? Some authors have done something wrong in the past. They were not willing to follow our rules. We put them on some kind of banned list, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, like this. If somebody's name shows up on the banned list, we will not review their paper. We reject it because it came from a banned author. Very important. I know you are not a banned author, not a problem. You may have a co-author who you do not know very well. If you make a person co-author, make sure he or she knows whether they are in the banned authors list or not. Very important. Check that. Otherwise, you are honest, you're innocent, your paper get rejected because you have somebody on your list of authors in the paper title, top of the paper that is banned. Keep that in mind, important. Once this is cleared, meaning the EIC determines the paper has enough new material, not content copied from some other source, none of the authors is banned author on this list, that's done, it's done. The first filter is clear. Now, the paper goes to an editor or an associate editor for that journal. Like Smart Grid has many topics. One person, the chief editor, cannot have expert knowledge in all of those areas. Like Smart Grid has more than 50 editors, 50, many special topics. So the chief editor reads your paper, figures out what special topic you are targeting, and send your paper to the editor or associate editor who is expert in that field. Then that editor will assign 5 or more reviewers to read your paper and make comments. Reviewers read the paper, send their comments back to the editor. Editor makes a summary of those comments. And based on those comments, he or she will decide whether to recommend your paper for publication or reject. 3 options: accept as it is, revise and resubmit, or reject based on reviewer comments. Suppose your paper got the first one, accept, no problem, goes to EIC, no changes needed, and you'll be notified email, paper is done, submit the paperwork, and it's done. Fine, finished, no problem. In many cases, we have revise and resubmit. The reviewers like what you wrote, but they want more clarifications, more results. I prefer that. That makes the paper better because it is now looked at by other people who have comments. So if it is revise and resubmit classification, it'll come back to you and it'll tell you where the editors want you to revise. It'll be line by line instructions. You revise that and you submit back, and hopefully it'll be accepted second time. Or if you are not lucky, it's get rejected. If the paper is rejected, then you cannot submit anymore. So this is important. Now, these are all recommendations. The chief editor, EIC, editor-in-chief, makes the final decision. He may not or she may not agree with the editor's comments. Maybe the editor said accept, maybe, but the chief editor will read the reviews himself or herself. Based on the review comments, he will might say, or she might say, it is not clearly acceptable. It has some questions, something missing. So he will then tell the author that it is revise and resubmit, not accept. Then he'll be told how to resubmit and revise. And then that's done. That's done. Now, what happens going forward? Why? Now I told you the process. Now the reason why you see the accept, revise, resubmit, or reject decision. Why? First is, if the content is not a good fit for the publication, suppose you wrote a paper on smart grid and submit to Power Systems journal. There's some common areas, but not very similar. It could be rejected by the chief editor of Smart Grid saying the content that you have proposed in your paper is not a good fit for Smart Grid journal, could be some other else. You can go somewhere else, no problem, but not Smart Grid, one. Second problem is the paper has serious scientific flaws, meaning results are not clear, or if you have some numbers, you interpret those numbers to mean something, but they are not clear. Or sometimes it does not happen to us often. It happens in medical journals quite a bit. Research is fraud. You did not do the experiment. You have made up numbers, and using made up numbers, you wrote the paper. This is serious. Those are reasons for scientific flaws. Next is paper is poorly written. You have good ideas, but you don't express it very well.
Ini orang mana sih? Kayak orang Indonesia.
Can you please turn your mic off? Somebody is talking.
Sorry, Professor, I will mute the user.
Sometimes the paper focuses on a very small problem. If it is a very small problem, then it is not useful to other people. So we say it does not address a big enough problem. Or it does not help other people to do more research because, I said before, you are looking at the paper as a platform to help other people to do more research. This is the idea. So you're a PhD student, did some good work, write the paper. So other younger or more junior students can benefit from the paper. That's what I mean by advancing scientific field. Or next item, most of the work you have presented in your paper has been previously published. It's possible it happened. Or next stage, this is relatively different situation. The quality of the paper is not good enough for this journal. There are many journals available on the same topic. There are 3 or 4 I know in a Smart Grid journal, in fact, 3 or 4. Some are highly rated, some are new and not so highly rated. If you submit a paper to a very highly rated journal, it may not be competitive because the many papers come there. So you have to be careful. Finally, which is unfortunate, the reviewer may misunderstand what you said. The way you wrote it, your figures not clear, tables not very well written. So this can happen. If this happens, write back to the editor that I said this, I have new tables, so you misunderstood, please reconsider. That happens. Okay, now, going forward, what are the structures of a paper? A paper must have the following items: title, abstract, keywords, introduction, methodology, results, discussions, conclusion, references. Make sure you have these boxes in your paper. Fine. Title. Sometimes the title is not clear, so people don't understand why they should read your paper. So first question that will ask when I'm reading your paper, is this relevant to my research? I decide that based on the title. If it is relevant to my research, I'll read it. Otherwise not. So you want the people to read your paper, of course, right? So make sure you choose a good title. It has to be crisp, not 30 words, for example, concise. Uses keywords. For example, you talk about smart grid, you talk about smart network. Avoid jargon. In your laboratory, in your department, you have some special words you use to explain things among yourselves. That is not understood outside your group. So don't use those words in the title. Example. So here is next abstract. Abstract is a standalone condensed version of the article. Condensed. That means you should say in 250 words what the paper is all about, what you did, how results were useful, why you did it, why the results are useful and important to other people. Example. You wrote a paper on electric power load forecasting, hourly load forecast for next 24 hours. That's what you did. Why is it useful? It's useful to a power company engineer whose job is to schedule generators to meet the load. So load is low at 10 in the morning, high at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they have to get ready, extra generators, meet the load at 4 p.m. If he does not know what the load is going to be, then he has no idea what to do, right? So your paper, which is a good forecast methodology, will be helpful to the engineer to decide what generators he should get ready for 4 p.m. load. Example. Abstracts, do's and don'ts. Very quickly, typically we write, we do not use first person like this at the bottom part. It's a red lines. Next, we describe, we comment, we explain. Don't say we. Look at the top part. The objective of this paper was to promote human expert-based approach to electrical peak load management, right? I did not say my objective or our objective. We didn't say that. Indirect. The objective of the paper was to promote human expert-based algorithm approach. Keep that in mind. In the abstract, you have also to give some results. What I'm saying in the bottom, the red X, this is not what we want. We do not want first person. We do not want present tense. This paper, this abstract has no results, only describes the organization. Abstract must have results. Like you say, I prepared this paper on load forecasting. The errors I get for 24-hour load forecast is under 3%. That number is really attractive to me, then I know I can trust your algorithm because it is very well written, well tested algorithm. Good. Now, keywords, very important. Why? Because you would want your paper to be visible to other people. If you go to any search engine, the search engine searches for keywords in your title and abstract. That's it. Based on that, it gives you, so I go to Google now, right now, and it's electric power load forecast. Put those 4 words, electric power load forecast. I get 20,000 papers, literally 20,000 papers. Which one do I pick? So Google will list them in the priority order. If paper has good keywords, good abstract, it will be in the top 10, not top 2,000. They get visibility. That's important these days, okay? Now, what should the introduction contain? It will talk about the 4 blue boxes in the center. You finally, first, you talk about what is known about this topic. Electric power load forecast. What is known? Well, do you have this technology in statistics, expert systems to do load forecast? Talk about that. And some reference from the literature. Box number 2, prior studies, historical context to your research. You are doing research in a vacuum, right? You are doing some work because you know something has been done, and you make it better. So that's the prior research. Next box, your hypothesis and an overview of the results. You should send the introduction. What results you got? Not all of it, part of it. And then how the article is organized. It has an abstract, introduction, methodology, result, discussion, conclusion, references. Say that. Now, how long it should be? For an 8-page paper, typically in IEEE, no more than 2 pages introduction. 1 is better. And write in present tense. Good. Methodology. You must have tables, figures, graphs. I prefer that. As engineers, we like to see evidence, not a lot of words, evidence. A table showing the error of forecast. A figure showing the error changes from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That makes me very interested to read your paper. Next is results and discussion. Results are numbers. Discussions, use those numbers to explain what it means. Suppose you did a load forecast for 24 hours, every day for a week, 7 days. You notice the forecast at 9 a.m. has less error than forecast at 3 p.m. It's possible, that's result. When you discuss, you can explain why that is happening. In the morning, 9 a.m., weather quite stable, sunny, you can forecast better. 3 p.m., weather gets cloudy, thunderstorm. If that happens, temperature changes and the demand changes. You cannot predict the thunderstorm very quickly. So that's the result. That's an example of discussion results. Okay, now, conclusion. You explain what the research has achieved. For example, you say, I have given a methodology to predict hourly load for the next 24 hours. Methodology. What has this paper achieved? Because it is getting 3% or less error in forecast, it is usable, it is useful to the engineer who is doing scheduling of the generators. Say that. And also in the conclusion, you revisit key points in each section. Like section on introduction did this, section on results did this, section on discussion this. And then always be careful. A paper is not the final thing in the world. Your paper has talked about something you have done. Other people can do other things as well. So mention that in the conclusion that we have done this much work, something is left to do. Others get some clue from your work what can be done. That's called future area of research. Good. So going forward now, references. They must be relevant to the work. They must be current. People ask me, what is a good number of references? 20, 25, 30, 40, 50. I say stay below 30 because you have a page limit for the paper, 8 pages. If you use up 2 pages with 100 references, you have not much left to write your topic. So 30, 25, less than a page is good enough. And you make sure you put the author name, title, publication name, publisher, year published, all of that. This is new today, GOI, Digital Object Identifier. Any journal will put a DOI number on your paper. That's how search engines find the paper, because you may not know the date of publication always. You may not know the publisher name, but DOI is unique. Any paper in the world, millions of them, has unique DOI. Okay, now, who should be in the list of authors? One is a report, one is a paper, 2 different things. Report is written for the whole project. The 3-year project, 10 people worked on it, they did part of it. All 10 names will go on the report, all 10 names. Paper is a part of the report being discussed in a technical way for public use. Report is not published online. Papers are published by journal. There's a difference. So there is a possibility that one project may create 4 or 5 papers. And people in the team, the 10 people on the project team, they can divide into 3 groups, 3, 3, and 4, and write 3 papers. That means the 4 people who got together to write this paper, only their names should be on the paper top, not all 10. Because your author means you wrote something in that paper. So keep that in mind. Others can be acknowledged. Ethics issues. The many reasons we sometimes are not careful. We do things without knowing. First is conflict of interest. Sometimes what happens is not with us as much, medical field. Medical campuses, universities, write papers, and they're also funded by drug companies. If you are funded by a drug company X, and that company has a medication that you use for that purposes, do not promote that medication in your paper. That's called advertisement. We don't like that. Second, plagiarism. That means you are copying from other people's, so don't do that. Missing author attribution on the upper right-hand side. If you are using someone else's ideas in your article, please mention that person's name so that you are all open. Avoid plagiarism. First item, cite and separate any verbatim copied material. What does it mean? You can copy maybe 1 sentence from another paper because you know that is well explained, but you're not going to copy a whole paragraph. If you copy something, maybe 2, 3 lines from a paper, put that under quotation mark. Then we know from that source it is not you writing. It's okay, but not a whole lot. Make sure when you quote somebody, put a reference number 32, and you know it came from paper number 32. If you get any ideas from other people, acknowledge that. Maybe the project you did, somebody, a professor or an engineer, give you some ideas to test some experiments. So acknowledge their support. Finally, IEEE has policies about plagiarism. I given you a link on the right-hand side. Use that to learn more. So this is more common I see these days. Duplication, redundancies, and multiple submissions. Duplication means you have a paper before, you're using quite a bit of material from the other paper, your paper, in a new paper. You can do some, maybe 30%, not 80%? Because if you're using material so much from another paper, then why write, right? Finally, multiple submissions. An author knows it takes maybe 6, 9, 12 months to get a paper accepted. They take a chance. They submit same paper 3 places, 3 journals. Don't do that, because then other people get very upset. Okay, where to publish? IEEE has 3 kinds of papers. Traditional, we know those very well. Open access, that means you, the author, pay to publish the paper. Paper is open. Anybody can see the paper without paying any journal usage fee. Some IEEE are hybrid, meaning they have some part is open, some is closed. It's up to you. So these are open access publications. IEEE access is journal. And here you submit the paper, you don't pay any money, of course. If it is accepted, then they ask you, are you willing to pay? You're willing to pay, it's published, otherwise you have to go somewhere else. That's an example. So our society has also an open access journal called IEEE Open Access Journal of Power and Energy Technologies, Power Energy, web open access. You look it up, and this is the money you have to pay, $1,350 to publish it. Once it is published, it is open, means anybody can see it without paying a subscription fee. We have other one called open access IEEE, is more expensive, $1,750. Fine. So impact factor is an important thing. Those are authors in the audience know impact factor will tell you how well the journal is respected. So we have to go through this report, find out the index factor, fine. Besides impact factor, I like to see other items you should look at. One is, it could be a new journal. That means it doesn't have a good impact factor yet, but is well respected because people running the journal is very well known. So this is fine. Just keep that in mind. So IEEE has other ways of judging the quality of a journal. One is download. If a paper is heavily downloaded, that means what? People are reading this paper, they're paying for it. It must be a good paper. Also, in IEEE case, many IEEE papers are used for patent search. You submit a patent, they look at the work that other people have done, that's going on. So finally, follow-up steps, what you should do. You are a team member in a project. Discuss among your colleagues in the team what could be done, what part can be taken out of the project report and make a paper out of it. Do some literature search, reference list, build a model that you as part of your project work, and do some more experiments, get some more results, write results and discussion, write the conclusion. Once it is done, then prepare a draft and have other members who are not authors of this paper, other people on the team, let them read it and make comments, and then make a final copy. Because you want to make sure you wrote a good article, it is easily understood, it has the right numbers of figures, tables, graphs, all that. Make sure that happens. This is it, my last slide. I have given you my email address, s.rahman@IEEE.org. I may not be able to answer all questions today. If you have some question, could not get the answer, please write to me, I'll answer them. Below that is my website, srahman.org. That has information about my paper, my publications, election for IEEE, all of that is there. So visit that at your leisure and learn more about the research I do. With that, let me stop here. Adharul, I'm going to stop sharing and you can run the Q&A now.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Professor Saifur Rahman. That was a good insight for us to understand about effective technical paper writing from how to organize a paper structure and also organize the idea. A good technical paper needs an organized preparation. Okay, before we start a Q&A session, Prof. Saifur, could the audience have the copy of your presentation slide?
Yes, I would send a PDF copy to Rini or to you. You can put on the website even if you can do that. You put on the website, yes.
Yes, thank you, Professor. Okay. Now we will start Q&A session. I think there is two questions from our audience in the chat box. The first is from Harry Trias, Mr. Harry Tris. The question is about do the journals of IEEE have limit time for reviewers to finish their task?
Yes, a very good question. We allow the editor no more than 6 weeks, 1 month to 6 weeks to finish all the reviews and make a decision, go back to the chief editor. So we like to see within 2 months, we get a decision about the paper. We can communicate with the author. That's our target. It is not always possible because some reviewer is not available. It's a summertime, somebody has other work. It can go to maybe 3 months. It rarely goes over 3 months. 2 months is normal number. I can see a question from Pangoro. I can read this question. What is your opinion about excessive self-citation in technical paper? Excessive self-citation. We discourage it because if you are citing 5 of your papers in your own paper, that means nothing new left. We have published already 5 things. Why not this paper? So I would put 3, 4, 5 to me is kind of borderline. More than 5, I think I have some questions. So that's my answer, Pangaro. 5 or less.
Yes, thank you, Professor. And now it looks like Mr. Rama Octavian raised his hand. And please, Mr. Rama Octavian, to unmute and directly ask the question to Professor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Adharul, for the opportunity, and thank you for the nice talk from Professor Saifur Rahman. It's quite a good insight for me because now I'm undertaking my first year of PhD study, and this is very useful for me. So I'm in the middle of preparing my first manuscript draft. I must admit that introduction section is the hardest part. My supervisor always talks to me that do not reinvent the wheel. Do not reinvent the wheel. He always talk several times about that, but somehow it's difficult to manage to have our own storytelling without paraphrase the sentence. So maybe do you have any tips for us to how to write our own storytelling without, maybe by the avoiding the plagiarism or some, maybe I must realize that I'm coming from non-native speaker countries. I think language barrier will be the hardest thing that we are facing right now.
Good question. Let me answer your question. That is a very valid question, especially in non-English speaking authors. I would suggest that when you read other papers, read them multiple times. Understand what they're trying to say. If you understand, you can paraphrase it. If you understand what this in your own language, on your thinking, very important. I tell my students, read many times that paper. Make sure you get the idea what they're talking about. So that's one. Second, this is a case always we have said, if you are writing from a non-English country, you may want a paper to reviewed by somebody else in your department, another professor. So get some idea. As I said, sometimes paper is rejected because the reviewer didn't understand what you're trying to say. You know what it is, but you couldn't explain it. Get rejected. That's my comment. I have another question. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, maybe the other questions. Maybe later I will ask you another questions. Maybe
Next
I
question.
will get the opportunity.
Question here.
Thank you.
question about keywords, how to choose keywords. This is a very challenging situation. For that reason, if you go to our journal website, Smart Grade Power Systems, there's a page on keywords. All the keywords. You look at the page and see what keyword from that list explains the idea behind your paper. Pick those keywords. You don't have to figure it yourself. Pick from the list. So that's the keyword issue. Let me go to the list of questions. Hassan says, is it allowed in archive, ResearchGate, accepted on hybrid journal, and we're not willing to take open access? This is an issue we fight all the time. If you put your paper in archive, we'll reject it. We'll reject it. Straightforward. Because any paper we publish, we IEEE own the copyright. You put a paper in archive, they have the copyright, not us. We reject it. Similarly, for say ResearchGate, no, cannot do that. So if your paper was accepted for the hybrid journal, I get it, and you're not willing to take the open access, I get it, then you will wait till the paper is published, because if it gets in hybrid journal, we give you the option. If you want to pay, it becomes open. If you don't want to pay, it is not open. It is still in the journal, but not open. If you put the same paper in archive, you violate IEEE copyright rules. Copyright rule means you give IEEE copyright for this paper. So not allowed. That's a very clear answer. Second is Noor question, how deal with rejection? Okay, what is the best way to list and prioritize candidate journals? That's a difficult case for me to answer because I don't know what your field of work is. Typically, what I tell my students, how I start this. You have an idea for a paper. Before we write the paper, we decide where we want to send for publication before we write it. Why? Because the paper I write must follow the journal style, very important. Their style and their content. So I make sure to my students, please look at the journal you're thinking, 2 or 3 of them, and read papers in those journals first and see whether your paper aligns with journal A, B, or C. Then, suppose aligns with journal B. You should find papers in that journal which are relevant to your paper topic. Why? Because if you submit a paper to a journal, they will expect that you have referenced some of the journal papers in your paper. They expect that. Otherwise, why go to that? So the answer to your question is the following. Read other journals which are relevant to your work you're planning to write about. Pick a journal that is more relevant, and then read papers in that journal. So you can then identify the areas where your idea is new, right? It's a new idea because this journal has these papers, they cover these topics, mine is different and new. That's fine. So things are moving pretty fast. Let me see. Rama's next question. Okay, very simply, the question, I'll summarize the question says, how to build a research collaboration team? Because in many papers, you see, papers are published with authors from many, not many, 2 or 3 groups, university, company, all the like this. As a young researcher, how to build research collaboration? You cannot do it yourself. You cannot, Rama. It is your professor and their colleagues have a team. You cannot build a team as a student yourself. It doesn't work that way. Next is Ahmad's question. What do you think about the word we in paper writing. I have done some we, but I prefer not, because as I said, it should be third person. It was done, not we did it. We sound kind of very proud. I mean, I'm a big guy. I did it. So don't give that impression. So that's it. So Adharul, any other questions? I didn't see any.
Any other question? If there is, okay. Maybe while we are waiting another question from the audience, I give you some question. One question, Professor. From the point of view of researcher, is there any difference in preparing scientific paper for a journal and for a conference, except the template?
Yes, difference is conference papers are written when you are finishing the experiment right away. Or maybe it's not done all the way, partly done, right? Conference paper. Objective is to go to a conference, present it, and get some feedback. That's objective. And conference papers are fresh, maybe 2-3 months old. A paper journal could be 10 months, a year old, because it takes so much time to process it. So conference paper is the starting point. Use the feedback at a conference, write a better paper. So I have another question from somebody else in the audience who said, self-citation, very important. You know, we didn't spend much time on this, called impact factor. Some people cite their paper in their new paper, their old paper, new paper, so there shows a lot of citations. Today, we are catching that. We are saying your H index would not go up based on self-citations. These are deleted from the list. So putting a lot of self doesn't help. So do not self, because you have a formula for determining the H index, and that will delete your own paper. So don't do that. It doesn't help.
Professor. Maybe Miss Novalio Darata or Mr. Novalio Darata, you give a greeting to Professor Saifur Rahman. Maybe you have a question, please unmute your microphone. Or maybe next audience, next question. Please activate your microphone. Okay, there is a question. There are questions from Miss or Mr. Arwin Sumari, Professor.
Yes, I see that question. The question is, we choose between open access or not open journal. This depends on what you want to do. Open access costs you money. So if you have the money, I suggest open access. Why? Because more people read the paper. It's open, right? It's in Google. So if you want many people to read your paper and have the money, I don't have the money, I don't do open access much. So company people do that because company engineers want to see their experiment, their ideas are widely distributed for companies' benefit. Do that. So I would say that if your money, do it because it gives more people to read your paper. That's a benefit. That's fine. Second question is, what happens if you miss an important reference? That happens because you did not have time to look at 200 papers. And it happens. If that happens, it's not bad. You'll be told by the reviewer, you missed this important reference. You get that comment. Then you find that paper, read it, and revise your paper to include that new reference. Happens. This is the normal thing, but sometimes a reviewer wants to be recognized without naming it. They'll say, you missed this paper. His paper. He wants you to reference this paper. So he gets cited. So that you have to use your judgment, how much you want to do. Okay, any other question?
Okay. Maybe another question. Ibu Rini, Pak Hadi, maybe you have any question? Oh, there is a question from Mr. Adi Wijaya, Prof. Saifur.
Yeah, let me read this.
Okay.
Well, open peer review is happening. I know you talk about archive in the past, a ResearchGate. These are open, but archive would not publish the review comments. Now you can publish some other place. Maybe you can have a social media account where you talk about paper reviews, but this is not organized. So I would not, happening today because of COVID. A lot of reviews are coming out of COVID, and some are not tested. People make their own comments, and people get confused. That is why we use the term peer review. That means people reviewing are qualified people, not just anybody. Right now, anybody talks about medical research in COVID, including former President Trump. This is a bogus thing because they have no idea what they're talking about. So open review is for that matter. Now, another question is how IEEE power system transaction differ from IEEE smart grid. Power system is the whole thing, includes switch gear, transmission network, transformer operation, the tap changing transformer, all of that is there. Smart grid focus on the definition of smart grid starting from communication technology application in the power system. That's the difference. So for that reason, power system has some common ground with papers in smart grid. If you focus more on the platform, the power network, that's power systems. So then what happens, sometimes I see paper in transactions for smart grid submitted for review, you're focusing more on the infrastructure, the network, not the communication part of it. Then you see it is not relevant to smart grid, go to power systems. We would not send it, you have to send yourself. Next question is systematic literature review. Should it be submitted into the journal which contains the most reference papers? Many reference papers are in H-index journals. This is no one answer to this because my guideline is the following. I will choose few journals. These days, easy. You go to Google and you put your keywords and see what comes up. And then you see 50 papers. It's a lot of work. Then you find what journals this paper is coming from. You get a theme. Out of 50, maybe 20 come from one journal, the 10, 5, 6 other journals. The one that is highest number of papers that is of interest to you, then go to that journal website. That website. They will list all papers, only abstract, the full paper. It's not free, right? Abstract is free. Based on that, you figure out. If you are a university professor or student, your university may have public, may have subscription to the journal. Then you get the download. Or sometimes if you do not get it, you write to the author of the journal. Please send me a copy. They'll write to them. Say, copy to that people. Then it's fine. That's how you figure out. So it is not one way to do this. Next question is Hasmina. Two questions. Could you please share with us how to determine whether such topic is acceptable to publish apart from doing literature review? No. One is you have to, as I said, you go to Google put your keywords, find relevant papers. That's how I do myself today. Maybe get 100 papers. Then you have to read abstracts, and you don't read all of it in full, some ideas. That is literature review. There's no shortcut. It has to be done because you must show in the introduction you read this paper. Otherwise, what happens? You're writing a paper that is done already published. So it is essential to do literature review. So I'm losing track of it, Adharul. There's a lot of questions coming up. So you decide which ones to follow.
There's many questions here. Okay. I think there is next question from Mr. Hadi, Suyono, and also Michiko. I think it is Professor
Prof. Afandi.
Yeah, Professor Afandi. His nickname is Michiko, maybe. There is a question from Mr. Hadi Suyono for the conventional IEEE journal. The review process needs more time comparing with the IEEE open access. Is it because the conventional IEEE journal free, or there are some other reasons? Thank you, Professor.
Well, a question from whom?
Mr. Hadi Suyono, Professor Hadi Suyono.
Okay, Hadi Suyono. I'm going to read the question. Give me a second.
For the conventional journal is take a long time to review, Prof.
Right. But I'm just giving a very quick answer to this question as I understand. Some people will publish in open access because two things. You get a very quick answer, and it open to the public. If you are more focused on getting citations, go to open access because people will cite because it's open, right? They don't pay to read your paper. So it's economics. It's your situation at the university. You want a promotion. You want more citations. You spend the money. Otherwise, I don't do it myself. I don't have the money to do it, but you can. I think one more time is almost up. One more question, please.
Yeah. Okay, I think most of question is asking about the to increase the probability how to the paper is can be accepted in the IEEE or journal system.
Well, what happens? I've seen that you submit to IEEE journal, Smart Grid, for example, gets rejected. The other journals from other publishers, Elsevier, Springer, IET, they have journals on the topic as well. Not that well known. Nothing wrong in your case to take the paper that was turned down from IEEE journal, go to somebody else. That's okay. It happens. I think one more question is important, Dr. Muhammad Sirajuddin. Summary of the question, when the name of the author shows up on the paper top, which is always there, the big guy is there, does a reviewer treat that paper with more respect than other people because not big guy name is there? I don't. Myself, I do not. And people tell me if I'm willing to put my name on that paper. I said no. I don't do that because if I'm writing the paper, I don't get my name used. I don't. Some people do. They get more citation that way. I don't do that. So I have told my reviewers that judge the paper based on its content, not the author. This came up in the past, and we blocked the author's name, called two-way blind. You don't see the author's name, author doesn't see the reviewer's name. Now it's one blind, meaning I don't see, I'm an author, I don't see the reviewer's name, I don't. They say my name. So are they getting influenced by a very well-known professor's name and they easily review the paper, don't ask hard questions? No need to do that. Why we do not do two-way blind? We do for some conferences, we do today, not for all journals. Answer is, we want to make sure as a reviewer that the paper is not a fake paper. What does it mean? I've seen example before. Sometimes people put some fake name, submit the paper. If we make it blind to the reviewer, they would not know the author's name. They'll pass it because it is making sense. So we, as I said before, it has to be relevant. We know what you have said, you could not have done it because you are not well known in the community as that researcher. I know the big guys in that group of researchers. You are not one of them. How can you say I'm done? It's fake. That's how we judge the honesty of the result presented in the paper. So that's one reason. But this is not us, is more in the medical field. That happens quite a bit. Okay, Adharul, that's it for now. Almost.
I think it was last question. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Saifur, and also all audience. That was a very warm and interesting discussion. I'm sure that it will be can be one of our guide to produce a good quality of technical paper for conference or journal. Okay. And please.
One more thing. Hold on. I say quite.
Okay.
Rini had a question. I saw the question, Rini. Give 1 second. Rini, can you repeat? Yeah.
Yes, actually, I would like to ask about the band author.
I know. Yeah.
Actually,
No, very.
What are the reasons and how often?
Very serious issue. Very serious issue. The question is, how does IEEE decide on band author name? How we decide that? Exactly. Not based on complaint. No complaint issue here. We have our own data. We see this author is copying other people. We see publications ourselves. No complaint from other people. Number one. Number two, if you see that once, give a warning that we noticed the paper has 50% copy. Give a warning to the author. That's it. No, nothing. Just warning. We watch it. Again, after 6 months, another paper comes, another 50% copy. Then we tell the author, we cannot anymore accept your paper because of this. They put depending on how serious the complaint is, it's not issue is, serious issue, it's a 1-year ban, 2-year ban, 5-year ban. We have those numbers. So it is not easy to become a band author, not easy to become a band author.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rini. Good question.
Thank you.
Please go back. Yeah, thank you.
Is that a last question? Miss
Yes, I think it is already almost 9 p.m.
Yeah, it is almost 9 p.m. here, and maybe we can continue and end this meeting. And once again, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and also big thanks for Professor Saifur Rahman and also Professor Afandi and Professor Hadi Suyono, and also all the participants. And I will show again one certificate that it is a symbol of our big gratitude from FORTEI and also from IEEE PES Indonesia section. Okay, we thank you to Professor Saifur Rahman for the very good presentation, and I think it is that's all for me. Yeah. I'd like to close this night session. It's the night session or evening session, and by saying Alhamdulillah, thank you very much, and see you again in next session in the next collaboration. Ya, wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.